Stuff like that, yeah. So I got a lot of those on my slides, but really the possibilities are limitless. I'm not really aware of a class of website that you couldn't build with Drupal. Sometimes there's other considerations that make other platforms more viable, but there really isn't a type of website that you couldn't build. But what does Drupal give you out of the box? Who here has installed Drupal 7? Or at least seen what it looks like? Yeah, so pretty much everyone. After installation, you get this blue thing, which is sort of a really simple blog with a not terribly great content editing experience. The thing is, nobody really wants this thing, right? When you're hoping and dreaming about your new website, you're not thinking of this thing. This doesn't meet any client requirements document ever. You couldn't go live with it, right? You're going to have to dig into the pool of 26,000 modules on Drupal.org, find what you need, install it, configure it, and mold it into the site that you actually want. And that's the power of Drupal, right? Whatever you want to do, there's a module for that. But it's up to you to go out there and find that stuff and configure it. Out of the box, Drupal is a blank slate. What most people actually want is something that kind of feels like a website, right? This screenshot is from OpenPublic, which is a Drupal distribution for making websites for local governments. After you install it, it's a website for local governments with demo data. If you just went through there and replaced all the demo data with information about your actual local government, you could go live with that in a matter of hours. OpenPublic? Yeah, people also need the core functionality for their particular site. This screenshot comes from Commerce Kickstart, which out of the box is a fully functional e-commerce store with a product catalog, with checkout, with payment. It's built on Drupal Commerce, which is this fleet of modules for building essentially infinitely complex e-commerce systems, not just stores with products. But it's so much easier when you're getting started to install something that works and change it rather than starting from scratch and building it up. So if you're already an expert with Drupal Commerce, that story would be a little bit different, but when you're just getting started. In short, people want something as close as possible to their end goal out of the box. When you're building a blog, you want to be thinking about the articles you're going to be writing, not implementing WYSIWYG and commenting functionality. When you're launching an e-commerce store, you want to be thinking about the products you're going to be offering and the deals you're going to be doing, not implementing a product catalog and shopping cart. You want to focus on the unique value proposition of your site. And if you work at an organization with lots of sites, or you're at a Drupal shop or you're a freelance site builder and you're building sites every day, there's probably some configuration that you do on every new site. Wouldn't it be great if Drupal just came out of the box that way? So this is where Drupal distributions come in. Who here's heard of the idea of a Drupal distribution? Sweet. Who has actually installed a Drupal distribution? Of any kind. Cool. Who's created a Drupal distribution? I guess Matt, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Drupal distribution is Drupal prepackaged with some contrib modules, usually a theme, and some configuration for a specific use case. You install it just like Drupal, but out of the box, it actually does something. And the great thing is that it still is Drupal. So if your distribution does X, but you really need X plus Y, you can still dig into that pool of 26,000 Drupal modules, download what you need, install it, and configure it for your needs. Here's some popular open source distributions. We already talked about Commerce Kickstart, OpenPublic. Open Atrium for building a company intranet, tools for discussing, collaborating on tasks. Drupal Commons if you wanted to launch your own Facebook. Open Academy for university department sites. Julio for school and high school websites. Demo Framework is a really cool case. Acquia, one of the, maybe the biggest Drupal shop, Dries, the creator of Drupal, works there, he's one of the founders. When they go to a potential client and try to sell them on the idea of Drupal, they don't take vanilla Drupal 7 and show them that. Instead, they take this distribution, Demo Framework, which has some of the popular Drupal modules installed, using sort of common configurations you see out in the wild, some use cases, like I think there's like a travel agency example built in, so they can actually show a potential client, what a really built-out Drupal site would look like. So even Acquia doesn't show vanilla Drupal to potential clients. Drupal, it's an internal project management and customer relationship management tool. If you have a Drupal shop and you want to manage all of your internal projects using a Drupal site, you can with Drupal. And Panopoly, which we'll be talking about in quite a bit of detail later. So on this slide, these distributions, these are open source distributions. You can download them from Drupal.org. They're essentially products, right? There's also a lot of internal distributions that different organizations have created to make their own lives easier, not for external use. Here's some big examples. But who knows how many more organizations have created internal distributions? They're under no obligation to tell us, right? And those are some big examples. But even small to medium-sized organizations can sometimes benefit from creating internal distributions. As a freelance Drupal developer, I've helped some small to medium-sized organizations create Drupal distributions. So here's some reasons you might want to do that. If you're a Drupal shop, you probably don't create 100% unique sites every single time. You probably operate in some niche. There's certain configuration you do on every single site. You could make a distribution that does that configuration out of the box. If you're an organization like a university or a government where you have tons of sites or you're launching tons of sites all the time, you can build your distribution once and deploy as many times as you want. So an alternative to a Drupal distribution is just cloning sites, right? So you've launched one site, and it's got some of the configuration you want to have on this second site you're going to launch. So clone that first site and modify it, right? And that works until you want to change that shared functionality on both sides. Now you have to log into the first site and change it, log into the second site and change it. And maybe that would work with 2 sites, but not 5 sites, or 10 sites, or 20 sites, or 100 sites, right? Instead, with a Drupal distribution, you can change the distribution itself and then redeploy to all of those live sites. So you're only changing in one place. So Panopoly, who here has heard of Panopoly? Who here has actually installed it? Oh, sweet, a couple of people.
2 days ago.
Yeah? In preparation for this talk? No?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? Awesome. So Panopoly is at least 3 different things, which makes it a little bit difficult to describe and certainly a lot more difficult for us to develop. The first thing is that it is a distribution itself. And it's a starter distribution. It's a blank slate distribution like Drupal 7, but it's an improved blank slate. We've made all sorts of user experience improvements, added some things that people commonly want, like WYSIWYG, media support, responsive layouts, and some panel stuff that we'll talk about later. But if you're just getting started as a site builder, starting from Panopoly can be a better place to start than from vanilla Drupal 7. I'll hope to show you that when we get to the demo portion. So the other thing that Panopoly is a base distribution to build your own distributions. Who here is familiar with the idea of a base theme? So most of you, yeah. So a theme is what controls the visual appearance of a Drupal site, right? So if you want your Drupal site to look unique, you have to create a custom theme. And you can create your custom theme from scratch, or you can start from a base theme. Some popular base themes are like Zen, Adaptive Theme, Omega. And by starting on a base theme, you get to share some of this work that the Drupal community has done. The base theme already makes some decisions about approach, and you just sort of have to fit the things that make your theme unique into that framework. So you can focus on what makes your theme unique and not redoing this underlying stuff. And it's basically the same with a base distribution, right? Panopoly gives you some sort of low-level stuff, some best practices, but mainly a framework that you will put the things that make your distribution unique into. The third thing, who here is familiar with the features module? Who here has actually created a feature with the features module? Awesome. So the features module allows you to take configuration that you've done on your Drupal site, like stuff you've done through the point-and-click interface, like creating a content type, adding some fields, creating a view, and export that into a Drupal module that you can then enable on another Drupal site, and that configuration will happen there, right? So it's a way of taking configuration and sharing it across multiple sites. So if you're an intermediate site builder and you want to take your game to the next level, definitely learn features. So in the context of Panopoly, Panopoly is also a set of about a dozen features modules that represent each parts of the functionality of Panopoly. So there's Panopoly admin with the admin improvements, there's Panopoly WYSIWYG, which just has our WYSIWYG configuration. You can also take any of those features and put them on a vanilla Drupal site. So if, when we get to the demo portion, you really like the WYSIWYG stuff that Panopoly has and you want to just steal that for your site, you totally can. Just download the Panopoly WYSIWYG module, run the makefile, and enable it. So to summarize this super complicated slide, Panopoly is a set of features modules that do each of the things that Panopoly does. There is a distribution which sort of installs all of those Panopoly features, so you get everything, but you can also take them and sort of pick and choose what you want to create your own distribution using them. Does that make sense? Awesome. So we'll see a lot of this when we get to the demo part, but one of the main focuses of Panopoly is improving the user experience. So before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the principles that Panopoly uses in improving the user experience. So the first thing is just doing the obvious things that everyone's already doing out of the box. There's a set of things that an experienced site builder will do on every site, and they're roughly the same things for every experienced site builder, right? So for example, disable the overlay module. Putting a filter on the modules page. I mean, we could argue about which module should we use to put a filter on the modules page, but I think everyone agrees that's objectively better. Installing admin views to replace the built-in content view page with a view. I don't know anyone who prefers the one in Drupal core. It's objectively better. So just all of these things that everyone's already doing to improve the UX, do them out of the box. We want to keep users and site managers on the front end and off the back end. We want them to not have to see a page on the site, say, oh, I want to change that, then dig around somewhere in the back end, find the place to change it, and then have to go all the way back to the front end to see the result, right? We want them to be able to edit things where they're displayed. So we want to keep Drupalisms behind the scenes. We want, any internet literate user to be able to understand the concepts necessary to customize their site as a user or site manager, right? For you guys, as the site builders, you're stuck with Drupalisms. There's no way out, right? But we don't want to require users and site managers to need to know what a view is, what a block is, what a panel is, in order to do the sort of customization that we want to allow them to do. And wherever possible, we want to include previews, live previews, WYSIWYG. We want to shorten the distance between making a change and seeing its result, right? So panels. There's a lot of very strong feelings in the Drupal community about panels. Who here's used the panels module before? Oh wow, not that many people. Who loves the panels module? Who hates the panels module? Awesome. I always love that.
I'm just learning it from Locke's context.
Mm-hmm. So you're still getting up to speed?
Well, I'm tying together all the different terms that kind of connect.
Mm-hmm.
That like varies.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated. Who has mixed feelings about panels? That's pretty much everybody. So I personally used to be in the hating panels camp because I'm a developer, right? And panels to me is just another pointy, clicky thing. And I don't want to be using pointy, clicky things. I want to be writing code, right? And a lot of site builders don't like panels because it's complicated, right? There's all these new terms to learn. There's a learning curve. The page manager, which is the default user interface for dealing with panels, is confusing. It's complicated. There's a lot of stuff in there, right? But Panopoly is what eventually won me over from the hating panels camp to the loving panels camp. And I think it has to do with the way that we use panels in Panopoly. So We include not just panels in the page manager, but the best of the panels ecosystem. So about a half dozen modules that add on to the functionality of panels. Here's 3 of the big ones. And not only that, but we try to hide the nasty parts of panels from users, which mainly means the page manager. The golden rule of Panopoly is that users and site managers will never see the page manager. So if your only experience with panels is with panels in the page manager, what you're going to see when we get to the live demo portion will be new. It will be different. And the way that we use panels allows you as the site builder to create really amazing experiences for your users of your site or of your distribution, and allows you to do it while writing little to no code. Using tools that you're already familiar with, like views or fieldable panel panes, which is really just a way of saying entities and fields. Creating a fieldable panel pane is no harder than creating a content type and putting fields on it. Anyway, using these type of site builder tools, you can create custom experiences for your users and export them to features and distribute them and all that fancy stuff. We'll talk about that more in the live demo. So yeah, we'll dig into the actual features of Panopoly. It'll be a mix of slides and live demo. But before I go to that, any questions so far? Anything? Awesome. So the first thing that Panopoly does is it enables a whole bunch of super popular contrib modules. If you've done site building in the past, which it seems like you guys all have, you'll probably recognize a ton of these, like views, path auto, jQuery update. You might not recognize some of the panelsy ones in the middle. But Panopoly includes all of these modules and takes responsibility for them, right? So we make sure that all of the versions that we include work together. We include any important patches. Every time there's a module update, we'll update Panopoly, so you don't have to update these modules yourself, you just update Panopoly. That includes security releases. Anytime there's a security release that affects Panopoly, we'll make a release within a day or two, sometimes on the same day. So for all of these super popular contrib modules, if you're building on Panopoly, they're no longer your problem, right? They're our problem. You only have to worry about the stuff in addition that you install. So layouts. Every website has to deal with layouts somehow, because right, most sites don't just have one layout across the entire site. They have 2 or 3 different layouts. There's a bunch of ways to do that in Drupal. The traditional way is through the theme. Panopoly uses panels. And through panels, we provide this menu of layouts. They're all responsive, cross-browser tested, will work in most themes, and site managers are able to switch between the layouts arbitrarily on the page that they're viewing in real time and move stuff between them and all that. I'll show you that right now. So this is a Panopoly 1.8 site. When you're installing Panopoly, the installer will ask you if you want to install the Panopoly demo module, which is what puts all of this fun vegetable and veggie ipsum on here. Later you can disable the Panopoly demo module and it'll take all that stuff away. So there's really no worry that it's going to dirty up your site. You can safely remove it later. So the panels IPE, which we were talking about earlier, adds these 2 buttons at the bottom, customize this page and change this layout. I'm going to click change this layout. We get that same menu of layouts that were on my slide. Here we have the sidebar on the right. Let's switch that to sidebar on the left. Bam. This page is already live. Sidebar on the left. If I click customize this page, I can grab any of the widgets on the page and move them to a different region. So if I grab this guy and move it to the sidebar, you can see the image shrunk to fit the available space. So I move it back here, it gets bigger again. Click save, and that page is already live. I'll show you the responsive stuff quick. So shrink the width of the screen a little bit. You can see the menu items went from tabs to these big finger press buttons. This is like the tablet version of the site. The theme that we bundle in Panopoly is responsive Bartik. It's actually a backport of Drupal 8's default Bartik theme, which is responsive. You'll notice Down here, the columns have gotten smaller and the images have shrunk to deal with the amount of available space. If we continue to shrink the window, you'll see the menu items have dropped behind this hamburger icon, and we switched from a 2-column layout to a 1-column layout. And the images have actually gotten a little bigger because they have more space in 1 column rather than 2 column. So all of the layouts included in Panopoly are responsive. Yeah?
Do you know, is the responsive stuff, is that based on any kind of framework, like CSS framework, like Bootstrap or Foundation or anything like that?
So currently the Panopoly layouts are with a sort of custom grid system. We're working on switching it to using the Bootstrap grid system. There's an open issue for it, and we're getting there. Any other questions? Awesome. So search. The search functionality in vanilla Drupal 7 is designed to run on as many environments as possible, including like $5 a month hosting. It's not designed to be particularly featureful or particularly performant. So Panopoly replaces the built-in search stuff with a suite of modules called Search API. Out of the box, it works on database search and gives you these faceted search. But you can easily swap out the database search for Apache Solr, which is a real search engine, if you have more intense search needs. But like all of the stuff in Panopoly, the search improvements come in its own feature, Panopoly Search. So if you thought this stuff was stupid, like you didn't want our search improvements, you could just disable that module, right? And it goes away. Or if you're building your own distribution and you don't want to include it, you just don't put Panopoly Search in your makefile, and it won't even pull in the dependencies like Search API and all that stuff. So you're able to pick and choose which of the features you want, or even take them and put them on a vanilla Drupal site. WYSIWYG. So whether or not WYSIWYG is actually a good idea, and there's valid arguments on both sides of that, users love WYSIWYG. Some users expect WYSIWYG, and it's going to be in Drupal 8. So setting up WYSIWYG in Drupal 7 isn't that hard, right? Just getting the editor to appear, to have the box there, not terribly difficult. But there's a plethora of problems that you encounter in practice. The first one is, which of these toolbar buttons to include. There's 100 options. Turning them on is just a checkbox, but some of them are a terrible idea. For example, letting users change the font. They'll put everything in Comic Sans, totally throw off all of the design work you put into choosing the right fonts. Or another example is font size, right? They'll make one header be 52 points, another header be 50 points, no consistency. You don't want them using font size for headers anyway, you want them using semantic header tags. So, a lot of thought has to be put into which buttons do you include in the toolbar. But even removing a button from the toolbar doesn't make it impossible for them to get that into the editor, right? If they copy and paste something from another web page or Microsoft Word or whatever, they can get anything into that editor. So you also have to set up a bunch of filtering rules to remove the things that you don't want to allow them to do. And beyond filtering for control, you also have to filter for security. There's HTML tags, namely an iframe tag, script tag, that could allow attackers to, spy on your users or steal their personal information, so you have to filter that stuff out as well. And beyond that, there's a bunch of features of WYSIWYG that users expect, which aren't included in WYSIWYG out of the box, like media support, for example. They require you to install and configure other modules and libraries and stuff. So what seems simple at first is actually quite difficult to get right in practice. Let's take a look at Panopoly's WYSIWYG. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's only one row of toolbar buttons. Then you can click this button on the end to get the more advanced options. So we're not overwhelming the users with too many toolbar buttons. Let's take a look at media support. It's one of the more difficult things to configure in WYSIWYG. So one of the features we've added to Panopoly really recently is this manual crop. So if you just want to get the kitten's super cute little face. When you're inserting it, you're able to choose from image style, whether you want original size, quarter size, thumbnail. This image is actually quite large, but we include the image resize filter module so that if you resize an image in the WYSIWYG, when it's actually served back to the user later, it will be resized on the server before serving it back to them. So if we have images, we got to have image captions. And the module that Panopoly uses for the image captions actually lets you continue editing the caption in the WYSIWYG, which I think is pretty cool. Not all of the caption modules in Drupal let you do that, if you guys can see that. So really non-technical users sometimes have trouble with links, just going to a web page, copying the URL and pasting it somewhere. They don't know what the URL is. So we also include the link it module, which allows you to type some keywords in content on the site, and it'll just give you a list of different pieces of content to link to. So really a lot of thought has gone into configuring Panopoly's WYSIWYG. So, why configure WYSIWYG on every new site? Why not just steal Panopoly's? So content. Has anyone here not seen the vanilla Drupal create content page? So everyone seen that? Awesome. Yeah, we got a real advanced group today. So Panopoly also has put a lot of thought into improving the UX of the create content page. Let's take a look at that. Go to a fresh form. So the first thing you'll notice is that unlike the vanilla add content page where everything comes in one column, the create content page is in two columns, similar to the way that it'll be in Drupal 8. We've also tried to remove unimportant or confusing things. On the vanilla Drupal add content page at the bottom, there's all those tabs with just crazy amount of options. We've tried to reduce it down to the bare minimum, just the things that you actually need or that users actually need. So for example, we've removed the promote to front page checkbox. You'll notice over here in publishing options it's missing, because that checkbox only ever did something if you didn't customize the default front page. But everybody customizes the default front page, right? So now all of your users are stuck with a useless checkbox till the end of time, just to be there to confuse them. We've also removed the publish checkbox, replaced it with the save draft module, so you get these publish and save as draft buttons, which are much easier for users to understand. We've also tried to adjust the size and position of different elements on the page for importance. So the title is big and at the top, like a title should be, right? Below that, you have the URL that the page will appear at, which is still important, so it's up at the top, but it's super tiny, so you aren't distracted by it. So yeah, a lot of thought was put into the usability of this page, but this is still a panel in panels, right? So if you wanted to further customize it for your users, like maybe switch it to 3 columns or move some of these blocks around, you still can. You can still gear it even more to your users' needs. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what if there are one of the features you took out you do want the users to see? Is that simply in the animate, can you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of,
So which feature are you thinking of in particular?
I mean, if you wanted to show the publish to the home page or show on the front page or
Yeah, so what I would recommend in that situation is if you actually do want to implement like a promoted or featured or whatever checkbox, do it as a flag with the flag module, because that allows you to say, I just want that on these content types, right? The built-in Drupal promoted to front page is on every single content type, regardless of whether you use it or not. But if you're going to actually have that functionality, you can use a flag to just put it on that one content type, and it also gives you a whole bunch of more flexible UI options. Like you can make it be an Ajax thing, you can customize the way it looks, whereas the default core thing is just really static. There's no extra control. So yeah, if you wanted that back, I'd recommend doing it with the flag module instead. But if you really didn't want any of that stuff, like that comes from the Panopoly admin module, so you could just disable it, and then all of the admin pages would go back to stock Drupal.
How is the front page on Panopoly created if it's not using the promote the front page? I took a look at it,
Mhm.
okay? And your front page is node in site configuration. And there are multiple pages on it. So how's the stuff getting there?
That is a very well-timed question, because we were going to talk about landing pages next. But I'll address specifically that. So this front page is actually provided by the Panopoly demo module. So it's just sort of like an example of what a front page could be. But all of the things on this page are configurable widgets. So like we have this list here of these 3 items. If we go to configure that widget, I guess, yeah, this is just a list of demo items widget. But we could instead create that as like a content list widget. I thought there was like a featured content widget. Well, anyway, if you wanted to implement that sort of functionality,
I'm just wondering how this is working, because I've got clients who want to do that kind of thing.
they want to do which kind of thing?
Well, select that some content will be internal to the website off of whatever
Mhm.
menu item, and other content will in fact appear on the front page and will get changed from time to time.
Yeah, so there isn't like a built-in way to have what we were talking about earlier with like a flag and featured and stuff. But the Panopoly demo module does provide this widget that shows pieces of content that are marked with this featured flag. Really, the short version is if you wanted to implement that for your users, you would be creating a widget for it in views, and then creating your flag to set that up. I don't think we have a way to do just featured stuff out of the box. Maybe we should. Okay, so next, we're going to talk about landing pages. So content is Drupal's bread and butter, right? Like creating a new content type, attaching some fields to it, creating 100 instances of it, mashing it up in a view. Like Drupal rocks at that. What Drupal does less good at is one-off landing pages, like a site front page, right? There's a bunch of solutions in Contrib for doing landing pages. You could do it with context and blocks. You could use panels. But even if you were to use panels, which I think does a great job at one-off landing pages, you're still stuck using the page manager. And the golden rule is that users and site managers will never see the page manager. So Panopoly provides a pseudo content type. You get to it still the same way you get to create any content. You go to add content. Then we have this landing page type. And when I click create page, this isn't actually creating a node, it's not creating a piece of content in the back, it's actually creating a page manager page. But rather than taking us to the page manager, it takes us straight to the view page where we can edit it with the IPE. So first let's give this page a layout. Everybody loves a sidebar. We'll click customize this page. And when you click the plus sign in any of these regions, you get a menu of things that you can add to the page. And these are all like standard internet things, right? Like add links, add file, add image. Because remember, Panopoly is a blank slate, right? But in Drupal, you know, who here has had a client or someone, a site owner, request that you have an image just appear on exactly one page on the site in the sidebar somewhere? Who's ever gotten a requirement like that? Yeah. I think we could all agree that that's kind of crazy, right? But they want it, so you have to do it, right? To do that in core Drupal, there's probably 100 ways you could, but they're all super hard, right? Like if you're going to do that with blocks, you're going to like structure blocks, you're going to create a new block, you're going to pick a region that it goes in. Of course, you don't really know what any of those regions are, you just have the name, right? So okay, sidebar, sure. You know, put your image in there. set some visibility rules, say, okay, it goes on this URL, click save. Of course, nothing happens. You now have to go visit that URL and see, like, hey, did it work? Like all of those steps just to put an image on an arbitrary page, right? In Panopoly, you can just go to that page, you know, click customize this page, add, and go like add image. Done, right? But we're going to step it up for this demo. We are going to add a video. And this is provided through the media module. You can just copy a YouTube URL into here. And you'll see that it already appears in the live preview on the right. As we change any of these settings on the left, they immediately appear in the live preview on the right. So I'll set a title. I'll make that title into a link. Say it's a link to Google. You can see, hover over this link, or maybe you can't see, but it's already a link to Google. Make it reusable. I'll show you what that does in a moment. Oops. Now save it. And we've already got a page with a video. If you put the video in the sidebar, like everything in Panopoly, it's responsive. It resizes to fit the available space. And if we go back to this add content dialog, we now have this reusable content tab. Can add that video widget that we made reusable and has all of the same settings from before. So this isn't a tool, the make reusable isn't a tool that you would use as site builders. You'd probably use like fieltable panel panes or views or something to make a widget for your users. This is a tool for your users to use to make reusable content that they can use in different places on the site, right? Like the promise of Drupal or any CMS is that you're going to build it for, you know, the site owner, for your clients, and then hand it off to them to maintain, right? And then they won't need to call you because they can maintain it themselves, right? That doesn't really happen in practice. However, you know, we feel that this set of tools is something that could conceivably be used by your users to continue managing the site without you needing to intervene. And the list of, you know, the menu of stuff that you can allow them to add, the default Panopoly stuff is just generic stuff, right? Like add links, add file, add image, add text, add map. When you're building a site for your users, you would put your own widgets in here, right? Like if you were making a Drupal distribution for musician websites, you'd have like a add discography to have like a list of their albums. You'd have an add audio player so they can put an audio player anywhere they want, right? These are, the things that will go here are things that you will create. And you can create them using tools like views, like fieltable panel panes. All of these widgets, like add text, this is a fieltable panel pane. So that basically means, you know, you create a new type, in this case a text type, and you add a text field to it. Same as creating a content type. Or, for example, there's this content list widget. This is actually a view. Who here has used the views module? Sweet, so almost everybody. If you're, you know, just getting started as a site builder, go learn the views module. It's the most useful Drupal module out there. It will revolutionize what you do. So this widget is a view, so all of these settings on the left are actually view settings. So if I want to change it from fields to content, you'll see now this becomes a list of teasers, and I can make it be, you know, the full nodes, or maybe I want it to be a table. And here's all of these, the fields on the view, and I can, you know, turn them on and off. Which ones do I want to actually be displayed? So when you're creating a view that you want to provide as a widget for your users, you can configure like which of these view settings do you want to allow them to change. So maybe like you want them to be able to change the number of items to show, but you don't want them to change the display type. You want that to be static, right? So you have full control over the settings that they have. And like this content type select box up here, that's actually the exposed filters on the view. So when you're creating a view, you can say like, well, these exposed filters should be really pane settings, and these exposed filters should really be, you know, normal exposed filters that appear with the widget, right? So you're able to create these really cool widgets for your users without writing any code. Yeah?
So these widgets are things that, as like a developer, I'd be creating in the admin section for them. I wouldn't be coding those
You totally can, yeah. So for fieldable panel panes, like right now, there's like a little snippet of code that you need to throw in a module. But the next version of fieldable panel panes, the dev version, you can do 100% of it in the UI. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, this is stuff that you could create in the UI for your users, and then if you wanted to, export to a feature to be, you know, reused on multiple sites, to be part of your own distribution, whatever you want to do. So let's just throw some other widgets on here. We'll try to make this look like a home page. We'll add an image carousel, because everybody loves to hate an image carousel. You'll see as I'm creating the carousel down here, it's already appearing in the live preview. Throw a quick content list on the side. Yeah, that already kind of sort of looks like a homepage. A really crappy homepage, right? But, you know, we were able to, in a couple minutes, just throw something together. There's one last thing I want to show you here. So you also get this paintbrush icon, which allows you to change the style of any of the widgets or the regions. These styles come from the Panopoly demo module. They all look terrible, but you know, they're just there to show you what styles would do. On a real site, you would provide this set of styles, you know, either as part of your theme, part of a module. There's a module called Stylizer, which allows you to create these styles using a point-and-click interface. But you provide your users with a menu of visual appearance changes they can make, which makes them happy because they have some control. But you're able to limit it just to a set of things that you know will look good on this site, right? Bam. So we've been mostly talking about you know, the features of Panopoly, like if you were going to use it as a starter distribution. But really the more interesting, the more innovative side of Panopoly is using it to build your own distribution. And we won't really dig into that today. I just want to talk about it for a moment. If you're really interested in building your own distribution, we have some great documentation on the project page on Drupal.org. But you know, Panopoly helps you by handling a bunch of the low-level stuff, right? Like some improvements for the installer. You know, here's how you lay out a makefile. But really, the main thing that it provides is a framework that you should put your custom things into that allows users to customize them with this type of UX, right? This slide is kind of a thought exercise. So this screenshot is from Open Academy, which is a Drupal distribution for university websites. It provides a content type called course with like the title, the course number, the time the course is happening, the number of credits, etc. And this view that lists all the courses, right? So Open Academy is actually built on Panopoly, but for the moment, pretend that it isn't, right? Pretend this is a standard Drupal site. Now let's say someone has installed Open Academy, started using it, and then says, oh, up here I want to add a little bit of text that says, you know, if you want to audit these courses, call this person or email here, right? How would a user go about adding that text?
In the view?
Yeah, yeah. So if this is a view page, you would have to go to the Views UI, and then you could add a text to the header area on the view, right? So if you're a user, though, I mean, that works great for us as site builders, but if you're a user, first of all, you have to know that this is a view, right? They don't know. It's a page, right? Okay. And then you have to know like what that means, where you go in the UI to change it, how to use the Views UI. You know, you could conceivably maybe train your users on how to use the Views UI, but you know, it's a challenge, right? And maybe they could figure out, you know, enough to add that bit of text. But let's say instead of adding the text, they want to add like a YouTube video of their students, smiling and thumbs upping, right? Like it quickly breaks down the amount of customizations that they want to make to the sort of special purpose stuff that you provided them. So in a Panopoly world, rather than providing a views page, you would provide a views content pane, and then all of your pages are panels pages with these widgets on them, right? So then they could come to this page, click, customize this page, click the little gear icon by this view, and they can do anything, right? They can toggle which fields are visible, change the way it's sorted, the number of items, and then, add any other widgets around it, like add a video, add a map, add whatever. So in a Panopoly world, like all the functionality that you provide to the user is as these widgets, whether that's from views or from fieldable panel panes or even custom code. But to your users, everything is the same, right? They go to any page, they click customize this page. It doesn't matter what any of those things are. They just click the gear icon and get a configuration page, right? So you create really custom stuff, and Panopoly allows your users to customize it after you've gone away. So really quickly, here's some distributions built on Panopoly. We already talked about OpenAtrium and OpenAcademy. Demo Framework uses a module or two from Panopoly, which is a totally valid way to use Panopoly. OpenChurch for church websites, Restaurant for restaurant websites, Pushtape for musician websites, MVP Creator's a pet project of mine for creating startup MVPs. These last two examples are pretty interesting. Like the Web Experience Toolkit is a distribution created by the Canadian government. I have no idea if it would be useful to anyone who isn't the Canadian government. But it's really cool that they released their internal distribution open source. So like if you're looking to create your own internal distribution, you have a couple really cool open source examples to go look at, like Web Experience Toolkit or ASU's or UC Berkeley's. Some shout outs right at the end. So I'm not the only maintainer at Panopoly. There's also Matt Cheney, the lead maintainer, and also founder of Pantheon. There's also Tom Kirkpatrick, co-founder of SystemSeed out in the UK. We're the maintainers, but we're not like some wizards sitting in the dark creating all this magic. There's a really active Panopoly community with loads of contributors, writing patches, submitting bugs, and really we just review that work, guide development and commit it. So, please come help us out. And I stole a bunch of slides from Matt Cheney. So, any other questions at the end?
When it comes to hosting, is this something that you can pull off with a GoDaddy shared account, or do you have to go off to something else?
So, I do not personally run any Drupal site on shared hosting, like a GoDaddy or DreamHost or any of those, because the performance is just terrible. Like, there's a number of things that hosting can do to be optimized for Drupal, and shared hosting just isn't it. I don't think that Panopoly would be that much worse than just Drupal is on shared hosting.
So what do you think would be the prerequisite for just a person's site?
Well, any of the Drupal optimized hosting will totally work, like Pantheon or Omega CC. Yeah, and anything that's specifically geared to Drupal would run Panopoly fantastic.
I've got it on shared hosting.
Oh yeah? Which,
Virtually all my client sites run on shared hosting. I've got a demo of Panopoly on all my shared hosting sites right now.
which hosting provider do you use?
A lot of mine are on mid-phase. I'm doing some experimenting with A2 hosting also.
Cool, maybe those guys have some sort of, Drupal optimized code in their stack. You never
Also, I
know.
did not mention GoDaddy.
Yeah. There's a question over here earlier.
So you've got all these features in here that are really awesome and want to steal them using them or non-monopolies.
Mm-hmm.
But then we want to tweak them because I don't like your tool or something.
Mm-hmm.
How do I keep that from being ungrateful?
So, like I said earlier, you totally can, steal any of our features. They are features. So the normal way that you override features such that, doing a feature revert won't overwrite them. There's ways you can do that in code by implementing default alter hooks, or there's the features override module, which allows you to take It works just like features, but you take the overridden things and export them. Have you heard of features override? Yeah, definitely go check it out.
With Drupal 8 going to CK editor, is that TinyMCE? Or what?
It is TinyMCE. The original Panopoly WYSIWYG was modeled after WordPress's WYSIWYG, which uses TinyMCE. And at the time, Drupal core hadn't committed to a WYSIWYG, so who knew that they were gonna go with CK editor? But yeah, we have an open issue to switch to CK editor. There's a patch that still needs some work, so we want to go there eventually. Honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, they both generate HTML code. When we get to the point where we're going to be migrating from Panopoly for Drupal 7 to Panopoly for Drupal 8, it really doesn't matter. It won't make it any easier to upgrade with CK editor. But we do want to do it because it would give us compatibility with like the edit module and some other cool things. Any other questions?
So if you're wanting to upgrade a site that already exists in Drupal with modules, and say you already have some of the modules that Panopoly brings in, how does it handle that? Are they separate? Is that just features? It just says, oh, they already have this installed, or they'll override it, disable things?
Yeah, so like
Specifically on like shared hosting is kind of what I mean. If I have Panopoly on one, not hosting.
Like multi-site?
Multi-site.
Yeah.
I have it on Panopoly installed on one site, not the other. Are there conflicts that you worry about, or does it?
So-
So you want your version, one of your sites, whatever module folder is going to take precedent over what's in the distribution, right?
Yeah, you totally could do it that way. Like if you have these contrib modules in like your site's all modules, and you want to just put this Panopoly magic in there for one of your sites, you can put it in sites, site name modules. But if you have existing modules that Panopoly uses, and you're doing something special with them, like you have a patch applied or using a certain version that you depend on, you could run into some problems because Panopoly will pull in its specific versions that it wants with its specific patches that it wants. So there might be a little work necessary to make that happen. But for the most part, you should be good.
It'd be good if you just install it first.
Yeah, then you don't mess with what's on the other sites, yeah. Any other questions?
Panopoly and it's really it looks like a system built for content creators. Do you have much experience or feedback about when you open sites up that like for commenting and things like that, where you have more users? Do they get at a lot of that Panopoly goodness, and does that increase the footprint of it?
So, you mean like performance footprint?
Performance-wise?
So from like a access control perspective, you're in total control over who can do what Panopoly magic to what pages, right? So you could say like this, I don't want anyone touching it, but like this is the user's dashboard. So, oh cool, I would like the users to be able to do the Panopoly magic on their personal dashboard. I really don't think there's any performance concerns. I mean, it's no worse than running a vanilla Drupal site with panels, which does add some performance weight, but super minimal.
Yeah. And caching, so we create all this stuff and then it goes to the cache and we're able to cache most of this stuff.
You mean like a front-facing cache, like Varnish?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should totally work. There's also a bunch of panel-specific caching that you can do to try and increase performance, like caching different panes or regions or whatever. Yeah, in fact, you get a lot more options as far as how you want to control the performance of your pages. Any remaining questions? All right, well, thank you very much.